Good morning and welcome to this week of Take 5, where we just take a few minutes to go through some points connected to our Bible readings together. We're really wanting to encourage you to get into God's Word and make it a daily practice of reading. And these little videos are just designed to help you a little bit with some thoughts, which I hope will be really encouraging to you. So we're looking this week at one of those books that we used to call them the sticky pages, the pages of the book of the Bible that sort of didn't get opened very often. And there's a problem with that. The biggest problem is there's some fantastic stuff in them. And we've got these 12 books called the Minor Prophets, and people therefore sort of think, oh, well, if they're minor, they're not important. But actually, they're extremely important, and they're only called the Minor Prophets because they're short relative to the sort of books of the major prophets, if you like. They're sort of big, long texts and things. But these are a bit shorter, thank goodness. But we're looking at Hosea. And Hosea is the first of those so-called minor prophets. And I've always thought Hosea is such a beautiful story, and yet a really powerful and even challenging story. But remember that this is it's an allegorical story. Now, that doesn't mean that it's like a parable where it's simply made up to get a message across. This is real. What happened to Hosea was very, very real. And he was a very real person around about the 700s BC. So Hosea, God used as a prophet to really speak powerful words, and he says some powerful stuff in here. But do you know the most fantastic thing is, and you'll see this as we go through this, that in every part where he is talking really quite challengingly and condemning people for their practices which are completely against his word, he always comes back with a promise of mercy and grace. And so it's also a very encouraging book as well as being very challenging. So when this book talks about God's people, the people of Israel, we are the descendants today. We are the same thing. If you like, in the New Testament, we are God's people. And so he's speaking to us. And so we need to be looking at some of those challenges that are there. For those of you who've never read Hosea before, it tells an incredible story of where God told Hosea exactly who to marry. And the person he said to marry was a prostitute. Which wouldn't, I'm sure, have been first on the list of any godly man. But in this case, God made very clear to him, I want you to marry Gomer, her name was. And the challenge is immense there, because I can't imagine being, sort of God saying to me, right, go and marry a prostitute. You can imagine him perhaps feeling like he needed to argue with God about that, but he doesn't argue with God. He does do what God has told him to do. And the story, as it develops, she does not change her practices when they get married. She's still off sleeping with other men and so on. But they also have 3 children, and the children are named Jezreel, and Jezreel means he who God shall scatter. And then Lo Ruhamah, which means she who has not been shown mercy. And then the last one is Lo Ami, which means not my people. And so they're actually really strong titles there, because you see he's talking about, he's reminding us of this message to the people of Israel, that God abhors their practices, but that he still loves them. And that's the message we're going to be looking at as we go through this week. Okay, so we're going to think about that a whole lot more. Hope you'll be joining with me. This will continue next week as well. Because there's 14 chapters of it, so we're going to do 2 chapters a day, but enjoy them, and I hope that what we offer through these little videos might help just to give you a clear understanding, but also some encouragement at the same time. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.